one bit of feedback I do want you to keep checking me on. Many people who have watched the show or listened to the show for a long time, you know my thoughts on it, playoff expansion and stuff like that. And I swore to you, now once we come to the edge of the cliff and we go over and we have expanded playoff, I'm going to jump on board with it. I'm going to cover it. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it every day. And I've tried. But apparently, some disdain has slipped through. So I do need you to check me on that. Because I do know from my own personal experience, I don't like listening to shows where people have a slightly negatively tilted tone towards whatever the subject matter is. I don't like a negative show. I like a positive show. I like to do one. So if I'm not doing one, I actually do appreciate you calling me on it. Some of you have. So quality control is on it. Producer Jesse, that's just code for you. We're on it. And if we take a little turn towards negative town, we gotta jerk the car back onto the main road because we're not going to do a negative show. We're jam-packed. We're high atop a just glowing downtown Nashville, Tennessee on this Tuesday night, December 10th, the year of our Lord 2024. We are proudly brought to you by those guys, Academy Sports and Outdoors, making the show free of charge for you forever and for always. I have to apologize and just redo my bracket because I got sucked into the content tornado Sunday when I was down in Fort Lauderdale at CBS Sports HQ, and I got all jacked up on Mountain Dew and Pixie Sticks, and I just threw all my predictions out there. Well, I regret several of them. So, Mimo always told me, until they kick the ball off, you can change your pick, and don't be scared to do it. So I'm just changing my picks tonight. Sorry. It is my constitutional right to do it. I'm putting a new national champion out there. In fact, I'm picking a team to win the national title I had eliminated in the quarterfinals, I think, the other day, Jesse and Colin. So, yes, very bold steps being taken to correct what I think was a wrongdoing on Sunday. Bill Belichick, is he the head coach at North Carolina yet? Do we have an update on this? Well, I'm hitting refresh over here as we speak. We'll see. I'm keeping an eye on it, as are you. The transfer portal's on fire. I almost had Director Colin just put fire in the monitor back here. Everybody and their mother and grandmother and cousin and aunt and uncles jumped in the portal. I got a lot on these quarterbacks, big-time wide receivers. There are also some misnomers out there about the portal, and if your team's in the playoff, then you escape this whole thing. No, you don't. No, you don't. I got to remind you what the rules are, you know, because they change every 12 hours. No one is escaping the portal's wrath this cycle. And I'll tell you something else. Don't get comfortable with this college football playoff format. I'm not going to be negative about it. I'm actually going to be proactive about it and telling you there is a piece out there that you need to be paying attention to today by, for my money, the best newsbreaker and scoop guy in the industry right now. And it is telling you, it is foretelling, it is red lighting what's about to happen. A lot of you are up in arms about these auto bids. I am too. Probably won't happen much longer. So, they're watching this in Beaverton, Oregon, Springfield, Illinois, Smyrna, Georgia, Irvine, California. Just a quick question as I dive into the show tonight. If you were me, let's just say you were blessed enough to get to do this for a living, you get to pick the first-round playoff game you go to. Which one should I go to? I don't ever get assigned. I just go wherever I want to go. Again, blessed. Where would you go? Which game? I can be recruited. I can be swayed on this. All right, the first thing that I need to do on tonight's show, appreciate you guys watching live if you are watching live. If you're listening to the replay, though, I appreciate that as well. I need to just go back in time, and if you were watching us on CBS Sports HQ Sunday, I just need you to forget everything I said because I predicted my college football playoff bracket. I regret it. I apologize. I think I was wrong. I think I picked a winner of the national title that is not going to win the national title. I think I had a team eliminated in the quarterfinals that may go on to win the national title. So just listen to me. 3, 2, 1. It never happened. All right, welcome to the show. I am ready for the first time ever in 2024 to predict the national champion. Never done it before, okay? That's the deal you and I just made. It never happened on Sunday. So here's the situation. Not only am I going to just repredict this whole thing right quick, I am also going to give you what the lines will be on these games if they happen, because I did want some newness to feature to you tonight. So I hit up FanDuel. I said, hey, here's what my bracket's going to be. Give me the lines. If these games happen, give me the lines. And they said, wait, didn't you predict it Sunday night? And I said, shh. And I did the finger snap on them, and they said, oh, okay, we get what you're doing. Okay, so throw the car in reverse. Here's what the lines would be. So The college football playoff is seeded. We've got the matchups. We know where they are. We know what the lines on the first round games are already going to be. But here's how the bracket looks right now. It's very pristine. No one's been eliminated. There will be chaos and anarchy soon enough on a college campus or campi, the plural of campus, near you soon enough. So up in this top region, do we want to call it a region, Colin and Jesse? Whatever. In the top part of the bracket, you got to visualize this if you're listening on podcast. You know we got Clemson versus Texas. Texas is favored by 11.5. And you got Tennessee at Ohio State. Ohio State's favored by 7.5. Now, I haven't really changed the way I think these games are going to go. I do think Texas will beat Clemson, just like I already did. I am just utterly fascinated to see if Steve Sarkisian does a healthy assessment of his offense and says, I think I need to incorporate Arch Manning more here. I would. I have called offenses for a grand total of 0 years in my life. I've played Xbox before, so that makes me an expert. Just like I've watched Law and Order before, so I could do brain surgery on someone. Or no, that's ER. Yeah, you get the point I'm making, though. So Texas over Clemson, I feel confident about that one. I don't feel nearly as confident about Tennessee, Ohio State, but why not? I'll take Ohio State. I'll take the 7.5-point favorite. I'm nervous about it. Don't get me wrong. Tennessee's that team in the first round that I am having eliminated in the first round as of now that could go on to win the whole thing. I'm uneasy, very uneasy about it. So that's how I have it. I have Texas advancing to play Arizona State, and I have Ohio State advancing to play Oregon. Now, we thought they were going to face off in the Big Ten title game. They didn't. As this stands, this would be the rematch of that regular season game, and that one would be in the Rose Bowl, by the way. Just to let you know where these games would be, Texas, Arizona State would be in the Peach Bowl or in Atlanta, and Ohio State, Oregon would be in the Rose Bowl. Those would both be New Year's Day, I believe. I know the Rose Bowl game would be New Year's Day. All right, so freeze that in your mind. Nothing's really changed. That's what I predicted Sunday. Now, in the bottom half of the bracket, if you want to call it that, we got all these first-round games. We got Indiana at Notre Dame. All right, Notre Dame's favored by 7.5. That's the Friday night game, so that'll be the first playoff game. Then we've got SMU at Penn State. That game happens the first game on Saturday, so that's a noon Eastern time kickoff. Graduation week. I've seen those hotel rates in State College. Brutal, brutal. So we know Penn State's favored by 8.5 against SMU. I have got Penn State beating SMU because I think they're the better team and they have home field advantage. We'll break the game down later. I'm just, for broad strokes purposes, I'm letting you know I'm picking my same winner there. I'm still picking Notre Dame to beat Indiana. Notre Dame is a 7.5-point favorite. That's another one that makes me very nervous because the last thing that I want to see here is me pick against Indiana and then Indiana wins, because Indiana strikes me as a program that's going to let you know about it if you pick against them and then they prove you wrong, which I would as well. I would. I mean, Pate State never loses, but I would as well. So let's take Penn State going on to face Boise. That would be in the Fiesta Bowl. And then let's take Georgia versus Notre Dame, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time, New Year's night in New Orleans, Louisiana. In the Sugar Bowl, obviously. That one would be, I have some hypothetical spreads here for you. That one would be, do you want to guess, by the way? I've got them in my hand right now. Do you want to guess, according to FanDuel? Now, let's just assume with Georgia that it's Gunnar Stockton playing quarterback. Georgia favored by 1.5. I've seen some contradictory lines out there. I'm telling you, and you can tell because I just thumped the paper, FanDuel hit us up within the last hour, right, Jesse? So these are fresh off the presses. Georgia minus 1.5. If Penn State plays Boise in the second round, Penn State minus 11.5. In fact, I'm going to give you all these right now. Texas, if they face Arizona State in the second round, Texas minus 14.5. Oregon, if they face Ohio State in the second round, Oregon favored by 1.5. Do you notice on this screen something that looks kind of incongruent? Do you notice that there are two lines that are really sharp, really tight? And then do you notice there are two lines that are double-digit spreads? And the teams that weren't playing the week before are the ones that are double-digit underdogs. Friends, that's what happens when you have a very jacked-up auto bid system or auto buy system. but we're not here to litigate that tonight. What I am telling you is, as these games go, I will take Texas to beat Arizona State in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. This would be Texas's second game in that building in a month, by the way, for whatever that's worth. I will take Ohio State, Oregon. I am switching my feel on that game. I'm switching my feel to Oregon. I think Oregon beats Ohio State in that quarterfinal game. They move on to play Texas in the semifinal. In the lower half, I'm keeping it the same. I still like Penn State over Boise. Penn State, 11.5-point favorite. I still like them over Boise in the Fiesta Bowl. Nothing's changed there. Notre Dame, Georgia is where I am swerving. I thought about this more on the flight home Sunday night because I had just picked Notre Dame to beat Georgia. And I've got a theory on Georgia that I really cooked up mid-flight, and I started to formulate some immediate regret in my mind. Georgia is the best football program in the country, and I believed that coming into the year, and I would still believe that if Texas had beat them the other day. You don't tear down a program overnight, over the course of one season. So Kirby Smart runs the best program in the country. The reason I mention that is because it takes a lot more than losing one player to tear down a program. And if you have an incredibly strong program and you've got veteran guys in that program, including at the quarterback position like Gunnar Stockton, what you'll find sometimes is you'll find when the starter goes down and the backup is inserted, it's not nearly as steep a drop-off as you thought it would be. But let's just say from a raw skill standpoint, there is a drop-off. There was a reason Carson Beck was starting, obviously. So let's say there is a drop-off. If you are a quarterback-centric team, then you're screwed. But if you're not a quarterback-centric team, if you are a culture, high-level program, guys bought in, willing to go over the cliff, if you're that kind of program and you're ultra-talented, what happens is you got 2 or 3 weeks to lead up to a game. There's this galvanization that is really, really bubbled over the surface when your backup that got inserted when you were trailing Texas comes from behind, and you as a team come from behind and beat Texas to win the SEC championship. So you're sky high emotionally. You got all the confidence in the world, but you also have an understanding in that locker room that quarterback's not going to be the guy we asked to go win this thing for us. We just got through multiple years of this with Stetson Bennett at Georgia, by the way. How many titles did they win? I think they won 2 national titles. That's all they did with him. They're used to this, is what I'm saying. And so I think there's a part of that program's DNA that relishes the opportunity, not that you wanted to see your starter go down, but that relishes the opportunity to go in, back against the wall. There will be a lot of folks doubt them because they are playing with their backup now. And I'm looking at the draw they have, and I'm looking at Notre Dame versus Georgia. Notre Dame's not running away from you. Also, Notre Dame's not running through Georgia because no one runs through Georgia. So I actually like Georgia's ability to win that game, Carson Beck or the backup, Gunnar Stockton. And that would move them on to play Penn State in the semifinal. And you know what? I'd pick Georgia to beat them. I'd pick Georgia to beat Penn State in the semifinal. It's a roster game. You got Texas, Oregon in one semifinal. You got Penn State, Georgia in the other semifinal. From FanDuel, the odds on these games, the numbers on these games would be Oregon favored by 1.5 against Texas. And it would be Penn State, Georgia, pick 'em. Now, it is my belief that if Gunnar Stockton and Georgia play at a high level against Notre Dame, that would be enough to move the market. I actually think Georgia would end up being favored slightly in this game, but it would be a tight spread. So those would be your semifinal matchups. We got a lot of folks watching live. Let me remind you guys, if you have not subscribed to this channel, this YouTube channel and the podcast already, it's free. We want it to be free forever. A lot of you may think you're subscribed, but you're not. We appreciate you watching. Please keep watching and listening. All I ask you to do is subscribe. That is how we're able to do shows like this without all the immense bells and whistles of sitting in a major television studio and needing all that overhead and distribution. So just subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. It's free. It doesn't sign you up for anything. It just helps us. How will these semifinals go? You know that I've been high on Texas all year. The model was high on Texas last year. I'm high on Texas this year. I think that there's a little shift offensively in philosophy in the playoffs. If I'm right about that, I think if Texas would have done that Saturday, they may have beaten Georgia in the SEC title game, but they didn't. If they do it in the playoff, I think they're going to play for a national title. So I will take Texas over Oregon in this semifinal, and I will take Georgia over Penn State in the other semifinal. And guess what that leads us to, ladies and gentlemen? What it leads us to is a 3-match for the national championship. It leads us to Texas versus Georgia. 80% of the country is irate, but they can't argue with it because it is what the playoff bracket spat out at us. And we would have Texas trying to take a third bite out of the apple, but there is no bite out of the apple because they tried twice and they fell off the ladder. This time, theoretically, they would be facing Georgia's backup. I don't really care because Texas led Georgia at the half Saturday, and that backup came in from behind. I cannot emphasize this enough. It's not like Georgia was holding on to a lead. They had to take the lead with Gunnar Stockton in, and they did it. And there was a car crash inside the 10-yard line near the end of that game, and he gets folded like a pretzel, but he holds onto the ball. They win anyway. I think Georgia is going to end up winning the national championship this year. And I did not say that Sunday night. And for that, I take full responsibility. But let me tell you something. I've sat here and picked Texas to beat these guys twice this year, and Texas has gone 0 for 2. And I will not allow myself to be wrong on this matchup a third time. If I'm wrong, it's going to be because Sark and Texas proved me wrong by winning. It will not be because Kirby Smart proves me wrong by winning a third time. Can't let it happen. Can't do it. There's too much on the line. And by too much on the line, I just mean the sterling reputation of this program. So I am taking Georgia. Texas would be a 2.5-point favorite in that game, according to FanDuel. Don't care. I'm taking Georgia to win the game. I'm taking Georgia to win the national championship. So that is my actual up-to-the-minute. It's 7:16 p.m. on Tuesday night, December 10th. That is my up-to-the-minute college football playoff bracket. I think there is something special now that Georgia got into this thing. I think there's something very special, and I want to emphasize again, I do not think that you are happy that your starter goes down, but there is a part of you that knows you're all you got, you're all you need. Like, that's exactly how Georgia's program should feel. We're all we got, we're all we need. Starters down? Okay, if you really believe in next man up, it doesn't matter. It does, but it doesn't. Because you put Gunnar Stockton in, and like Michael Williams or Malachi Starks, these are defensive players. They look at it and say, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. I mean, we're Georgia. Last 2 times we played Texas, we put like 30 sacks and 75 tackles for loss on the board. We'll get it done. Don't lose the game for us, and we'll get it done. And if we got to go through Notre Dame and Penn State in the meantime, we out-roster those guys without our starting quarterback. That's how you should feel. That's how, you look at Notre Dame and you look at Penn State and you think that one of them's going through us. We're Georgia. That's how they should feel. It's a competitive arrogance that has been earned around there. I've picked against them twice this year. Actually, I've picked against them 4 times this year. I mean, we kind of got the Bama and Ole Miss games. We'll forget about that, though. The Texas matchups, because Bama and Ole Miss aren't in this thing. Texas is. So I'm going to take Georgia to win it all. I know a lot of you are Texas fans. A lot of you are Georgia fans. A lot of you are Oregon, Ohio State fans, Tennessee fans. A lot of you have trips coming up, maybe to unfamiliar places. But you're going to do something familiar when you get there. You're going to watch a college football game. It's the greatest sport on the face of the earth. It's not even debatable. We don't believe in the phrase, and it's not close on this show. But college football is the GOAT, and it's not close. And Academy Sports and Outdoors can gear you up for any kind of tailgating need that you may come upon. They can gear you up for Christmas or both, you know, because I don't think there's a better Christmas present that you could pop on little Mikey and little Johnny and father than a surprise trip to maybe a college football playoff game. You got to gear up. You got to buy your canopies, your tents, your chairs, and all of that. It is Academy Sports and Outdoors. That's the one-stop shop for it all. Why do I say that so emphatically? Well, number one, because I go there all the time, too. Number two, not necessarily in this order, by the way, they are the presenting partner of this show. They roll with us. They were riding with us before we were the most consumed college football show on the face of the earth. And so we're not hopping off the bus with them anytime soon. We appreciate Academy, and you will too. Check them out. Before you wrap the Christmas shopping, make sure you check them out. All right, we got a lot going on. A lot going on. We got a jam-packed show. I'm just getting started. The transfer portal is ablaze. The transfer portal is loading up by the moment. There are like over 1,500 names in this thing. You can think what you want about it. I don't think it's going to be this way forever. It's the way it is right now. I'm not here to go grandfather on you. I'm not going to prop my leg up on my knee and just talk about how much this sucks. There are parts of it I don't like. There are parts of it you don't like. I think that we can have a world where players are free to move, and it's also a little ridiculous that this much movement's going on. I think there are very predatory street agents that are, in the short term, profiting off of this vacuum, and that vacuum was born through a lack of adults in the room having their hands on the wheel. Okay, so there's the commentary on how out of control this is at the moment. However, you got to make your roster work somehow, right? So here's the latest. I'm tracking a lot. I'm following a lot on this. Like the quarterback situation just fascinates me. It fascinates me. Malik Murphy, the quarterback at Duke, they just went 9-3 this past year, and he's in the portal. Auburn and Miami, by the way. We here are two schools to watch for him. Auburn's going to host him Wednesday. So he's going to visit Auburn. We expect Auburn to make a major quarterback move. This would qualify for Hugh Freeze as a major quarterback move. Whoever lands Malik Murphy has landed a big one. So he's in there. Luke Kromenhoek, the quarterback from down at Florida State, very, very high-level player last cycle. You got Gus Malzahn coming in as the new offensive coordinator at Florida State, and anytime you have a new coordinator come in, obviously you have to assess the roster. The roster assesses the new coordinator, the new coach or whatnot. Am I a fit? And that's above and beyond just, do I want to stay around here regardless? And so at least one of those answers looks like no for Luke Kromenhoek. So he's probably going to move on. And FSU is also reportedly in the market for Thomas Castellanos. That's the quarterback from Boston College. You got benched this past year but can play. Or Castellanos. What did I say, Jesse? No one even came in my ear, immunity. No one even came in my ear and corrected me. I just know I said the name wrong. Castellanos. The two L's. We don't like L's on the show. We especially don't like back-to-back L's. So FSU is kicking the tires on Castellanos. Oh, I did it again. This is terrible. Thomas, the quarterback, the able-bodied quarterback from Boston College. So Jackson Arnold's in this thing too. So Jackson Arnold goes and wins Elite 11. We were out there a couple of years ago. And then he goes to Oklahoma, and he's going to be the savior. And this is other people's words, not his. Okay, so when you call someone a bust, make sure you blame yourself for hyping him up. I participated. Here we go. I'm raising my hand. And then the season goes the way it does this year. Dylan Gabriel, by the way, transfers out, but that's okay because we got Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold had turnover issues in the bowl game. He had turnover issues in spring ball. We reported as such on this show and got lambasted /basted for that, but it was true. And then there were turnover issues during the season, and he got benched. Then he came back in, but it was just a horrifically bad year offensively for Oklahoma. So he's in the portal. Fresh start mode. Jeff Lebby was the OC at Oklahoma when they originally recruited him, if you'll remember. He's now the head coach at Mississippi State. They're trying to get in it with him. We'll see. I know that Auburn has been mentioned there. Auburn is probably going to be mentioned with a lot of these guys because they've got to land one. So the question with Jackson Arnold is going to be, was he overrated all along, or was he just in a terrible situation? And to be honest with you, I don't know which it is. I still think a lot of the book on him can still be written. So he's in there. Darian Mensah is a name I think less of you know. If you're a G5 fan, if you're a Tulane fan, you know that he was a freshman down there, 66% completion guy, over 2,700 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions this year. He was very good. They were in the playoff mix all the way until the end. Got a visit lined up to Duke. So Malik Murphy hits the exit door, and the seat's still warm. And who knows? Whomst amongst us knows? Maybe Darian Mensah takes it. I imagine he'll have other offers. We'll just see how that goes. I'm looking at Connor Wigman. There are a lot of rumblings today about Houston. Maybe Willie Fritz lands Connor Wigman. Keep an eye on that. Still a lot of tread left on the tires there. And Miller Moss, remember, Miller Moss transferring from USC. He's in the portal. We're looking at Louisville and Missouri. I think they're going to get visits from him. But also, I think it was Pete Nakos earlier today that I saw talking about the idea, and he's not the only one that's mentioned this. I just saw him talking about it. The idea that maybe, possibly, there's the concept that multiple guys from USC are coming with Miller Moss wherever he goes. We'll see. We'll see. I know that they've had some guys go in the portal today. Could have some more go in the portal. That's always a talking point. Far more rare is it that it's reality, but who knows? This could be a reality-based situation. Eric Singleton is the #1 overall player in the portal right now. That's the Georgia Tech wide receiver, and he is looking strongly at Georgia. I would call Georgia the leader in the clubhouse for his services right now. He is a legit deep threat, explosive pass catcher, and I just did something I hope I never do again. That's just baselessly, blindly reading off a graphic on the screen. The graphic's right. I'm just, if it's already there, like, do I really need to read it to you? Casey Concepcion from NC State is also in the portal right now. Alabama is in the mix with him. This was a freshman All-American at wide receiver in 2022, and then no one had much of a shot at NC State of doing anything noteworthy last year. So Bama's in this, A&M's in this. A&M's also in it from Micah Hudson, the 5-star from Texas Tech. These are all receivers, by the way. It looks like a visit to A&M's lined up there. They're going after a big-time wide receiver, aren't we all? So I expect A&M to be able to hit on one of these guys. Is Ole Miss going to do it again? Ole Miss is crystal balled as the favorite for the #3, #5, and #8 players in the portal right now. And they're all defensive. Well, 2 of them are defensive guys, and then we got an interior offensive lineman. That maybe, who knows? Maybe Lane Kiffin just does it all over again. I am very concerned with what's happening at Arkansas. It does not mean the world if you retain your head coach if the players leave. That's happening at Arkansas. That's happening at Kentucky. Florida State's had 18 of them go in the portal. Now, listen, I'm not dumb enough to fail to realize not all of these are guys that you are actually losing. Many of them may be guys you encouraged to go in the portal or you did not lay on the ground behind their car as they were backing out. But at Arkansas, they're losing players. LSU does not feel like they're in a great spot to me. Virginia Tech does not feel like they're in a great spot to me for different reasons, program to program. But at Arkansas, the vibe around there was, all right, we either want to win a bunch of games this year or we want to lose enough to where Pittman's not retained. Well, they landed somewhere in the middle, and Pittman is retained. But it doesn't feel like the energy around the program is such that guys want to stick around. It's early in the cycle, so I'm willing to wait and see, but I don't have a lot of confidence inspired in me right now about what's happening at Arkansas. A lot of folks watching, by the way. I know a lot of folks will watch this individual video on transfer portal because it's always a really hot topic for us. Just make sure you subscribe to the channel while you're here. We appreciate you being here. It's free. It's free. It doesn't sign you up for anything. It just helps us. There is an important note with the portal here that I want you all to take special time to pay attention to. There's a misnomer. There's a very, very big misnomer, actually, that's floating around, and that is, okay, the portal opened on December 9th. The portal closes on December 28th. Well, let's do some quick math. That means if I'm in the playoff past December 28th, then my players are going to stick around. I mean, who's going to hop in the portal when you're on a playoff team, right? My players will stick around, and I will have pulled the wool over everyone's eyes. The calendar will have worked to my advantage, and woohoo, we made it to the semifinals. Our players are locked in until spring at least, and we're good. No, you're not. No, you're not. I have in my hand the entire NCAA rule book. No, I don't. But I have a piece of paper. You need to know something. Whether you're playing in a playoff game or whether you're just playing in a late bowl game, players have 5 days after the end of their season to enter into the transfer portal. So if you are, for example, Texas or Georgia or whoever, and you go to the semifinals and you get eliminated, you're still in the weeds here. A bunch of guys can hit the portal the very next day or the day after or after or after or after. They have 5 days to enter the portal. Now, that doesn't mean you're in a situation where you're set up to lose guys, but you can't take anyone. Remember the rule here. December 28th is just the day you have to have entered the portal by, unless your season ends after that, in which case you have extenuating circumstances and you have a 5-day window that you can go in. But so Alabama's season is over right now. So Caleb Odom goes in the portal from Alabama. I'm making all this up. I don't know anything about where he's headed. Caleb Odom goes in the portal. Well, Caleb Odom has gone in the portal by December 28th. He doesn't have to be committed by December 28th. So, like, if Caleb Odom wanted to go to Texas, and Texas is playing until the semifinals, and Caleb Odom just wants to wait and see what their roster situation is, and then Texas loses a bunch of receivers on January 3rd, Caleb Odom could wait till Valentine's Day for all he cares. He just has to be in the portal by December 28th. So that December 28th date, it's the end of the portal, but it's really not. On multiple fronts, it's really not. So stay locked in, guys. Stay locked in. Drama that starts in 2024 can roll over to 2025. Speaking of rolling, how are you going to do it with no gas? Quick Trip's got the answer, you know, with the gas pumps outside and all. And a lot of you have not been having to pay for gas because I have been giving it to you for free, courtesy of our giveaway deal with Quick Trip. How does it work? Well, here's how it works. You ask for free gas, and I give a lot of you free gas. It's very technical. There's a lot of language in that contract there. Now, for many of you, you have found that the best way to put yourself in position for that gas is to go to Quick Trip, take a picture of yourself in the parking lot, and tag me and Quick Trip on social. Yeah, that gets our attention. But I'll be real, I've given free gas to some of you just because I was in a good mood. I've given free gas to some of you. Like, there was a guy on Twitter earlier today that said he had just resuscitated an old lady, and she said that she wanted to be called Meemaw. We're probably going to send him a free tank of gas. Like, general rule of thumb on the show has always been, if you promote the show or save someone's life, we're going to give you something for free. Generally, that's what we've tried to adhere to. A few lifesavers may have slipped between the cracks, but by and large, we reward you if you promote the show or you save people's lives, especially if they're asking to be called Meemaw. So Quick Trip has fueled the whole new Saturday tour all year. Someday when the dust settles and the season's over, I'll give you some of the stories behind the scenes from the whole new Saturday tour this year. Okay, Jesse, I need to ask you a question, so wake up in the control room. We're doing the show live, so I have to do this sometimes. Do we have any news on Bill Belichick? Okay, we don't have anything. All right. And then the other thing that I need to remember, actually, just remind me to talk to you about it afterwards. I spotted something on the screen, but I don't want to change it right now. Bill Belichick in North Carolina. A month ago, whomst amongst us is guessing that this is a headline. So let me cut to the chase. Bill Belichick wants to coach in the NFL again. I think most people around football understand that. You probably don't have to have been around football to understand that. There don't appear to be any immediate head coaching jobs opening that either he can get or that he wants. But the North Carolina job's open, and apparently Bill Belichick wants it. I have viewed this with skeptical eyes from the beginning. I still do, but there is a lot of smoke here, a lot of smoke. So let's walk through what we've heard, because what we heard today was interesting to some and an eye roll to others. There were a lot of rumblings out there today that, hey, well, first off, there were rumblings that we could hear something last night. And then there were rumblings the night before that we could hear something. And what's obvious is a lot of cooks in the kitchen. It is North Carolina athletics, after all. So there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And Bill Belichick wants it, but he wants it conditionally. And there are reports, unconfirmed reports, that maybe he wants a head coach in waiting title for his son. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just being bandied about like a tumbleweed rolling around on Twitter and the internet and message boards, etc. But what's more realistic is it's highly likely Bill Belichick has a lot of guarantees that he wants in place. That's not uncommon. If I were taking the North Carolina head coaching job, I'd want a lot of guarantees. Namely, I want to be able to be guaranteed that I'm going to be competitive in revenue sharing and NIL. I want to be able to put together a competitive roster. That's what it's all about. So he wants that. Not a shot. But earlier today, there were a lot of reports that he had delivered a 400-plus page Bible to North Carolina that detailed the structure that he wanted and payment plans and how he was going to staff and more. And this caught a lot of eyes, and it raised a lot of eyebrows, and it shouldn't have, because this is very common when you're trying to get a job in coaching or elsewhere. True story here. I cannot share specifics. But once upon a time, I had a little insight into management's interview process at this company. Not management interviewing someone, although I've sat in on that as well, but I sat in on management being interviewed for the job. Fascinating process. Management came to the table equipped, and he had a plan for how he was going to do this and that, and he had answers to every question before we finished the sentence, and that's how you get a job. That's how you get the job done in the interview process. And so it's no different in coaching. You got to be able to answer the questions in many cases that you know are coming your way before they even come, and frankly, you need to know the questions that they don't even need to know to ask. Because an athletic director or a board of trustee member has never coached a down of football in their life in most cases, and yet they're going to hire you and then maybe fire you based on your ability to do all that. So Bill Belichick has all these grandiose ideas. And to someone who's not well versed in this process, you say, oh man, 400 pages. This dude's revolutionary. In what respect? That's my question. In what respect is Bill Belichick bringing anything revolutionary to the table at North Carolina? I don't have a particularly awesome feeling about it. Although I do have a couple of North Carolina brethren who disagree, I just want to know, what is it that is overtly special that Bill Belichick is going to bring to the table? No. Hold on, let me finish. I didn't ask what's special about his Wikipedia page. I didn't ask what's special about the fistfuls of rings that he has. I didn't ask anything about the past. I'm asking as it relates to being a college football head coach, 2025 and beyond, at a second-tier institution football-wise, in the third or fourth best conference in America right now. What is it that's revolutionary or groundbreaking that he's going to bring to the table? Because I know what the sell point is. The sell point is, hey, if college football is transactional now, if college football is like NFL light, if it's all about staying inside the cap, understanding how to allocate budget, understanding how to build and construct a roster, understanding how to staff a front office, if you think knowing that stuff's revolutionary, you need to go take a look at the University of Texas. You need to understand how Oregon's operating, or Ohio State, or Alabama, or in your own conference. You need to take a stroll around the halls at a Miami. I'm not even saying all these places are winning at a high level. I'm just saying, if you think understanding how to build the organization to mirror the Sunday game is revolutionary, dude, they got people inside the building at North Carolina who have already been doing that. Maybe not at a high enough level. Maybe they weren't turned loose enough. Maybe they weren't given proper resource enough to make you notice or be competitive. But guys, I talk to these folks every week. I go to conventions with them. Like, I listen to the closed town hall Q&A sessions. I've sat in on the panels. This is old news. Like, understanding that you've got to construct a college football front office to mirror the NFL, and bringing NFL people in to either consult with or outright build it for you, that's old news. That's old news. So that's not revolutionary. It sounds like it because you rarely get to see under the hood of the car. You just see whether it runs correctly or not. I'm in a position where I do get to see under the hood. That stuff's not revolutionary. So next, you bringing some revolutionary offense in? You bringing some revolutionary defense in? Do you have a relatability or a connectability with high school prospective student athletes that your peers in the conference don't have? I'm open to be sold on that, by the way. I just don't necessarily think that's Bill Belichick's forte. By the way, as you attract talent to Chapel Hill, at every turn, the programs you're competing against are going to be in kids' ears saying, he's going to the NFL the moment he hits the exit door. Now, the counter to that is, Josh, that would matter in the old recruiting structure. That's not going to matter in 2025 and beyond. It's all transactional now. You know, you're just going to sign free agents to one-year deals at a time. And if a kid hears that the head coach is leaving in a year, it really won't matter to him because he can leave as well. That's true, but that's not how you build a winner. The misnomer out there is that now that college football is transactional, is a really popular phrase and buzzword right now. Now that college football is just like the NFL, relationships don't matter so much anymore. You know, roster continuity doesn't matter so much anymore. It's BS. It's wrong. That's incorrect. Oh, you can go get players that way, and you can win some games that way. But I want you to pay special attention to the little tournament we have coming up called the College Football Playoff. And I want you to watch as that field thins out. I want you to watch the teams at the end, because they will be deep-pocketed, and they will have paid a lot of money for that roster, but they will not have always been the highest bidder. contrary to what the headlines say. They will not have always been the highest bidder. What they will have done is they will have offered close to fair market value for kids, but they will have sold kids on playing for the brand, the logo, and what that logo means and the culture that it reflects. And they will have gotten kids to buy into that. And there is, again, a misnomer out there that's bygone. That concept of creating a culture and then immersing kids in the culture, no, dude, that's 2021 stuff. That's old recruiting fantasy stuff. Now it's just paying kids the most money and having them come in mercenary style, and you just work for the paycheck, and it's no different than clocking in at a 9 to 5 like the pro guys do it on Sunday. Yes, it is different. Yes, it is different. And I'd suggest to you that even at the Sunday level, the strongest cultures disproportionately win and therefore pick low in the draft come draft time. And then the weaker cultures are always in the top 10 picking, unless you had massive quarterback injuries and whatnot. So I'm not saying Bill Belichick can't succeed at the college level. I got no clue if he can. It's really hard to do it. I got no clue if he can. But I'm telling you, there's nothing revolutionary in concept about the ideas that a lot of people are throwing out about this. So we'll see if he gets the job. But if he does, you've got to be doing something different, or you've got to be doing something that others are doing, but you've got to be doing it at a higher level than them. That's the part I'm not necessarily sold on with the idea of Bill Belichick in North Carolina. What I am sold on is I was wrong and ZEVIA was right. I have admitted wrongdoing like 3 times on the show tonight, and it doesn't feel great. And Jesse, we need to cut a reel, because there are those on the college football streets who say I never admit I'm wrong. Well, tonight's show has been like a case study in the fact that, yeah, that theory's up in smoke. ZEVIA comes to me a few weeks ago and said, we want to do a contest. I said, I'm all ears. Hey, send me more grape ZEVIA. Wham, I'm all ears. And they said, okay, well, you go buy that stuff for very cheap. I said, I want it free. So they sent it to me. All right, so they said, we want to do a contest. We want to give away a bunch of stuff. It's December. It's the Christmas season. We want to give away a bunch of gift cards. We want to give away some Chat Life Supremacy. We want to give away some ZEVIA. I said, okay, how are we going to do it? And they said, oh, very easy. Just tell folks that ZEVIA is available at Walmart nationwide. So toast. It's great tonight. It's available at Walmarts nationwide. And then they said, well, hey, man, just do what folks already do with Academy or with Quick Trip. Just tell them, go outside with some product, with some ZEVIA in Walmart's parking lot, take a picture, tag us, tag you, put the hashtag ZEVIA Pate State, and we'll round up 25 winners and we'll send them a $100 Walmart gift card. I said, well, that sounds easy enough. But I didn't think many of you would do it. I was wrong. Tons of you have done it. Tonight is the last night I'm putting the offer out there. So I'm giving you fair warning. Next couple of days, you're going to want to get this done. You go to Walmart, you buy some ZEVIA, you get out in the parking lot, you take a picture. You go on probably Twitter or Instagram, tag them, tag me, ZEVIA and Josh Pate, and ZEVIA Pate State is the hashtag. 25 of you are just taking home a $100 Walmart gift card, okay? 3 of you, grand prize winners, will take home the $100 gift card. You'll take home an entire case of my favorite flavor, and then 3 of you will take home Chat Life Supremacy just in time for Christmas. Can you imagine sitting around the Christmas tree on Christmas morning, sipping ice-cold cream soda ZEVIA out of your own chalice of supremacy? That is, it truly would be a wonderful life if that was how Christmas went for you. It could happen. It could happen. Okay, speaking of things that could happen, speaking even of things that we've talked about on this show, I have to discuss something with you. Let me get this little quote over here ready. Okay, just got it on standby. The college football playoff is upon us, and there are some things, in fact, there are many things that people have been pointing out that they don't love about it. Now, I think by far the most popular takeaway from folks that have some discontent is they don't like the format, the structure itself. I've got a big problem with it too. So I'm not going to continue to beat this drum because like everyone's pointing it out. The fact that you've got automatic buys for the 4 highest ranked conference champs. That format has flaws. You did not, in my opinion, need to get to last Sunday before you realized that was a flaw. We said it the day the format came out because they tried to sneak it by you and you're like, hold up, wait, The 4 highest ranked conference champs are the only ones that can get a bye. Yeah, what? So if the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country play in a conference title game, the loser of that thing may not even drop out of the top 4 in the rankings, but they can't have a first-round bye. Meanwhile, like the number 16 team in the country, Clemson, could end up winning the ACC, and they're going to get a guaranteed spot in the playoff. They may even have a first-round bye. And if not them, Boise State. Yeah, that's how it's going to work. Okay, well, if that's how it's going to work, the format's going to suck. Well, breaking news, the format sucks. So a lot of people think that. So a lot of people are just running around saying, this is going to change. I'm one of them. I think it's going to change. But it's important to remember why we're here. It wasn't just that all of the conference commissioners got together late one night and said, all right, our format's due tomorrow. Let's just hastily throw something together. That's not the way it happened. It had to happen this way. I mean, you really think Tony Pate or whoever was the commissioner of the Big Ten at the time it was formatted, or Greg Sankey, you really think the commissioners of the 2 most powerful conferences in the country wanted the concept of only conference champs having the first 4 seeds and the automatic buys? Of course they didn't. But we were in a situation where in order to change the contract, in order to get your expanded playoff, in order for everyone to become more rich, and by everyone I don't mean us, I mean them, for everyone to get their ultimate financial way, there had to be concessions. This is no different than watching House of Cards and watching Frank Underwood try to push a bill through Congress. This is the way it works. You have to give so you can take, and in the end, the bill that comes out on the floor looks nothing like what it originated as, but it's a bill that you can get passed. Well, this was the format they could get passed because you had to get sign-off on all of the major conference commissioners. So the SEC had to sign off on it, but so did the AAC. The Big Ten had to sign off on it, but so did the MAC. And the MAC was not going to sit around, and the G5s were not going to sit around and say, oh, sure, we'll expand the playoff with no further parameters or caveats. Absolutely not. We need some guarantees. So the G5 got a guaranteed spot, and the 5 highest-ranked conference champs were going to be in, and the 4 highest-ranked conference champs were going to have buys, and that's what they had to sign off on. So just a little backstory, a little FYI. That's why we are where we are. But now people don't like it, and you shouldn't, because it's not a good format. Although I admit they had to do it this way to get to the expanded playoff. Alternative possibility, don't expand the playoff. But I'm not going down that road. I promised you, not going down that road. So Ross Dellinger is doing as good a job as anyone in his space of breaking news. And unlike some in his space, he actually cites people when he reports news that's already been broken. I know it's a revolutionary concept in the world of journalism, but not everyone practices that. Ross does. And he's a friend of the program, so we love Ross. Over on yahoosports.com, I would strongly encourage you to go check out the piece that he has up. So he sat down with Greg Sankey today. They're out in Las Vegas, I think, at the Sports Business Journal Forum. There's like a forum every week for these people. And Ross got with Greg Sankey, and it was the first time publicly that the SEC commissioner has spoken about the playoff. Okay, so Colin, keep this quote up for a second, because I'm going to read it in a second. But to me, the SEC and the Big Ten have had a solution that they wanted all along. They were just waiting for the problem to come along. Well, the problem came along. Now, there are many listening to this who despise the SEC at a cellular level. So what I'm about to say is not to insinuate that you all agree with this. I am speaking from the perspective of SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. When they look at the way the playoff just went down, they think conference title games are losing their value. They're worried about conference schedules chewing up their best teams, i.e. Ole Miss, South Carolina, Alabama, and they're left out. The committee is very uncertain year to year, and they don't know what they're going to get there. Those are problems. They already had the solution. Now, with that in mind, I want you to look at the screen, and if you're listening on podcast, don't worry. Uncle Josh has the book in front of him, so I'm going to read along. Greg Sankey spoke to Ross Dellinger. This is a very important piece. I need you to go to yahoosports.com and read this. Even though I don't work for them, I've plugged their website multiple times. There was a little format that was thrown around in spring. Maybe you recall. It, of course, called for the playoff to expand again, so you can't sneeze a proposal without it including more playoff expansion. But baked into that, do you remember? It was a little while ago. Do you remember there were guaranteed amounts of spots in these new formats for the SEC and the Big 12. There's like 4 guaranteed spots or something like that. And a lot of people were up in arms about that. Because why should you have a guaranteed amount of spots at the table? And they were like, well, because we're bigger and more powerful than you. And you thought whatever you thought about that. Okay. With that concept floating around again, I want you to listen to this paragraph from this Ross Dellinger piece today where he interviewed Greg Sankey. Quote, such a concept, multiple automatic bids for these conferences, may come with a reimagining of conference championship weekend. I don't want to yell, I told you so, so I'm not going to. But those of you who have been around for a while, you know good and well, we told you so. He continues, at the very least, officials have discussed a play-in style conference tournament where winners would punch their bids into the playoff. For instance, if the Big Ten gets 3 automatic bids, perhaps their number 3 and 4 seeds meet in a play-in game. What did I just read? What I read is where this is headed, and where I think those 2 leagues have known it's headed for a while. This little 12-team format that we got such a problem with right now, some of us, it's not of their concern, it's a stopgap. 2026 and beyond, that format's going to look different. I would imagine the playoff will expand again. I'm numb to it. You ask me what I think about it, I'm numb to it, but I will give you some thoughts in a second. But I will tell you what I think is about to happen, because I've said the same thing for about a year and a half now. This is where this was always headed. If you've been watching the show for a while, that right there, what I just read you, sounds very familiar, because it was pretty easy to see coming the idea that the conference championship games were going to struggle to maintain their value, but they have to, because the networks have paid a ton of money for them. And so ESPN cannot have the SEC championship game losing its value. CBS or Fox or whoever's carrying the Big Ten championship game that year, they cannot have that game evaporating in their hands when it comes to how valuable it is and how important it is. So the way you do that is you reformat the playoff and you throw your weight around next year to do it, and you get yourself 3 or 4 guaranteed spots in the playoff. Because once you have that, you have everything. So if I'm the SEC, if I know I've got, let's just say it's 3. If I've got 3 guaranteed spots, or call it 4, if I've got 4 guaranteed spots at the table, at that point, I don't have to worry about the committee anymore. I've got to worry about my conference standings. That's all that matters at that point. Greg Sankey went on in that piece, by the way, unironically, to say, hey, if all of the rest of this is subjective, let's just go back to the one thing that's crystal clear, conference standings. Well, the only way they can do that is if they know they got a guaranteed amount of seats at the table. But if you know you got a guaranteed amount of seats at the table, Colin, keep this up here. Then all you have to do is look at the SEC standings. And the way you would figure this out and the way you would reward your teams for having a good year is you take Texas at number 1, they get one of the chairs. They don't have to play another game. Georgia, number 2, they get one of the chairs. They don't have to play another game. You may say to yourself, Josh, aren't they going to go to the SEC championship game? Nope, I'm getting to that. Hold on. Those 2 are already in. Now, Tennessee, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Alabama are the next 4 highest-ranked SEC teams in this given year. Well, here's what you do with your conference championship weekend. You actually create 2 games instead of 1, but they're not conference championship games anymore. They are play-in games. And so 3 would play 6. Tennessee would face Alabama in one of those. Winner gets the 3rd chair. South Carolina would play Ole Miss. Winner gets the 4th chair. That's how you figure out how your 4 SEC teams are going to be in the dance. Same things happening simultaneously in the Big Ten. So what you've done there is you've actually added inventory for your media partner. You changed what conference championship weekend used to be into what is called play-in weekend, whatever you want to call it. And you crystallized the idea of your conference championship race having maximum meaning and more teams being involved all the way to the finish line. Now, this is going to happen. I promise you this is coming. Either this is coming or something much more radical is coming. That right there is not radical. Based on where we are now, that's commonsensical, that's practical. They won't sign off on anything beneath that moving forward. I hope everyone understands that. So what do I think about it? Well, of course, I don't like it because I don't think anyone should be guaranteed anything at the table. I don't think any conference should be guaranteed anything at the table. If the Big Ten's great, they ought to be able to have 8 teams out of the 12-team field for all I care. If the SEC sucks, they should have 1 or 2 teams. If they're great, they should have 7 or 8 teams. I am for this very, very, very radical idea that is, we should just take the 12 highest-ranked teams at the end of the year and put them in the playoff. I know, right? Ugh, it would never work. It'd never work. It'd never work because the folks that exert control over the sport wouldn't have control over it. That's why it would never work. Well, when I'm college football commissioner, all that's out the window, but I haven't been elected yet. But that is where we're headed, people. Many play-in formats in those major conferences to decide who gets guaranteed spots at the playoff table. If that sounds attractive to you, okay. If you hate it, okay. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just telling you that's probably, scratch that, definitely where we're headed. Where are you headed this championship season, this playoff season? Many of you are scouring the internet. I know my audience very well. Many of you are scouring the internet. Why are you doing that? Because you want to go to the playoffs. You're an Indiana fan. You live in Terre Haute, which is beautiful this time of year, and you want to go up to South Bend for the playoff. Oh my goodness, the ticket market is outrageous. However, I can at least tell you where to go to get a little discount. Over at SeatGeek, any of you who are looking for, you could be looking for playoff tickets, you could just want to go see Justin Timberlake for all I care. You go there, you use the code PATESTATE10, the number 10, PATESTATE10, you get 10% off. There's no catch here. Okay, it is a fact that most of you are going to some kind of entertainment-based event in the near future that you're going to need tickets for. And if you don't have an in with your boss, or if your company doesn't get a guaranteed amount, if you're one of us normies and you just got to buy them the old-fashioned way, buy them the old-fashioned way, but just do it a little bit cheaper by going to SeatGeek and using PateState10 as the promo code on your way out. I would suggest telling all your friends about that as well. It'll make us look great, and it will save them some money. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is, you guys screwed it up in your predictions this year. And we have talked long enough tonight about where I got it wrong this year. So let's talk about where you got it wrong. Let's save me for a little while. We do bold predictions every spring and summer. I put a rating on how bold the predictions are, and then we just bookmark it. And we come back in December. And that's the fun part. This is the not fun part. Like, for example, the first one that I want to hit tonight is from Tyler in Austin, Texas. He said, we'll have a matchup of undefeateds for the national championship. Now, I put a 9.5 on this out of a 1 to 10 boldness scale. The rule around here is if I rate your prediction 9.5 or bolder and it happens, you get a chalice of supremacy. Well, Tyler, it's not happening for you because we only got one undefeated team left. That's Oregon. That's before the things even started. This time last year, we had Michigan still undefeated. We had Washington still undefeated. And they did play for the title, so this did happen last year. FSU was undefeated, but they weren't in the playoff. So this happened last year. It's not happening this year. And I think that we've probably come close to seeing the end of that era with how deeper these major conferences are and how thinner the depth is, relatively speaking, than in years past. It's going to be tough to get those undefeated matchups late in the year. So that one busted. Next one was just, it was terrible. The next one was not all that bold to me. Tyler from Maryville, Tennessee said Ohio State will beat Michigan by 2+ touchdowns. Now, you see the date there. This is from June. It's not from late November, but it wouldn't have even been bold in late November. I only gave this a 7 on the boldness scale. Tyler, if you would have texted me this the morning of the game, I would have given it a 5 or a 4. Ohio State was favored by 20.5. They didn't even need to cover to win by 2+ touchdowns. And I think we all remember how this went down. I will never have confidence in this game again. Ohio State could play a high school from the state of Michigan, and I will be nervous if I'm betting Ohio State for the foreseeable future. My confidence is shaken mightily in the balance of power in that rivalry. It's going to take a while for me to fill my confidence tank back up. I mean, this is a tank even Quick Trip could not fill up. Next up, this one was a 10. This one was never going to happen. Jake hit me up and said, Deion Sanders will take another job before the end of a season. If there's one thing Deion is good at knowing, it's when the ship is sinking and getting off of it quickly. He sent me this on May 5th. And I said, you are wrong. This is a 10 on the boldness scale. Well, Deion is in Boulder, Colorado tonight. and he is wrapping up a 9-3 regular season. I don't know in what scenario this was ever going to happen. Because if the ship was sinking, what job was he leaving to take, firstly? And secondly, the ship didn't sink. The ship's fine, man. They actually built like layers onto the ship. It's a bigger ship. It's 9-3. He was never leaving. It was never going to happen in that scenario. So this was a 10 on the boldness scale. No chalice of supremacy being sent out there. Next up, this one's pretty painful too. This one was an 8.5 on the boldness scale. This one takes us to Lee County, Alabama. Jacob said, well, Jacob actually hails from Indianapolis, but he made a prediction about a team in Lee County, Alabama. He said Auburn wins 9 games, and they knock on the door of the playoff. Auburn went 5-7. The follow-up there, they did not knock on the door of the playoff. They are knocking on the door of a local shelter. They are not in a bowl game, and so that's the way it went. Now, what's painful about this is it's not a bunch of blowouts. The Cal game, change one play. Change one play in the Arkansas game, one play in the Missouri game. The Oklahoma game still haunts me because I bet Auburn that week. There's a world where, you just go in there and reverse engineer like 4 or 5 plays, and Auburn's an 8 or 9 win team, and maybe they would have been. Maybe they would have been in this little group of teams in the 10 through 15 range that was begging. They were knocking on the door, as you said, of a playoff spot. But alas, that is not how it turned out. How it turned out is poverty, and then a lot of pressure on Auburn next year. FanDuel does not have an over-under win total on Auburn for next year, but, buddy, they have a lot of other odds up. I gave you all the hypotheticals on the games that may happen tonight in the playoff. I gave you numbers FanDuel's not even offering yet, but they are offering a lot. So you can use our QR code here. You can go over there, bet 5 to win 150. That's still going on. But, man, FanDuel's been really, really good. Like David has sent us, what, Jesse, like 15 texts per day on this stuff. So we are kept up to date as the market is moving. And a lot of you know that you could, of course, go bet the point spreads. You could go bet over-unders on these games. Bowl games are right here as well. But there are a lot of different markets over here. And if you're just curious, you don't have to go bet over there. In fact, if you're unsure, do not bet. But if you're just curious about what the numbers are, like is Texas the favorite to win it all, or the second favorite or third favorite? Well, that's all over there. Just for information purposes, it's really fun to peruse your way through the FanDuel app, the FanDuel platform. Okay, I opened the mailbag today. I'm going to hit 2 questions here, but I do want to tell you, with the way we'll format December, a couple of things. I'm going to get to a ton of your questions. I am going to have several special conversations in the month of December coming up. I'm excited about that. It's a new format we want to try out. So stand by on that. Get a little sip of grape ZEVIA. I can't just look at that can over there. Oh, every time I take a sip of grape, it re-challenges cream soda for my favorite. Okay. Benji hit me up today. He said, does it take a national title for Oregon to become a blue blood? No. Oregon could win every game by 50 in this playoff. They're not a blue blood. And they could win the title again next year, and they still wouldn't be a blue blood, because that's not what a blue blood means. Now, they could be a dynasty or something like that. They could be on a really, really unprecedented heater. They could be on a hot streak. To be a blue blood, does that not happen over decades? I think Dabo Swinney and Clemson, next to Alabama, they had the best run in the 20 teens of any team. I don't even think they're a blue blood. Like, you've got to do it decade. So Alabama is a historic blue blood. Notre Dame, I would call a historic blue blood. USC, I would call that. These are programs that mattered when your grandfather was alive and when your dad was a kid, and they may have had dips, but they've mattered nationally. They have been winning at a national level multiple decades. Oregon's not that. This is no knock on them. Here's the follow-up. It doesn't matter. You think Dan Lanning sits around saying, man, I wish we would have done more of this program in 1983, but we didn't, so we can't be a blue blood. No one even cares. No one cares about that anymore. That used to matter a lot more in college athletics than it does now. Let me tell you what matters now. What matters now is having juice in the moment. What matters now is being relevant and being able to attract talent and being able to do the same things that have always won. But your history as a program is not nearly as big a recruiting factor or a talent acquisition factor as it used to be. It wasn't, but maybe just a generation ago, that if it came down to it, heads up on the recruiting trail, the team or the program that had the richest history and tradition may be able to ride that factor as the tipping point on the recruiting seesaw. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't hurt, but it doesn't matter anymore. If Alabama recruits heads up with Oregon, the factors that are going to decide the recruitment of a 5-star wide receiver from Denton, Texas, when those two are going at it, have very little to do with what those programs were doing in the 70s. You probably have to teach that kid who Paul Bryant was. You probably have to teach him who Mike Bellotti was. So no, it will not make you a blue blood to win a title this year. It doesn't matter if you're a blue blood, whether you win a title this year or not. Quack, quack. Next up, we've got a question. Well, actually, man, how about this? I got this late in the show. I didn't even tell you. They're watching us in Lincoln, Nebraska, Park City, Utah, Tacoma, Washington, and Anderson, South Carolina. Thank you, guys. Chip hit me up. He said, I heard what you said about coaches claiming they don't want to play Ole Miss. Why would they worry when that team couldn't even beat Kentucky and they went 9-3? Well, Chip, because they're still a team that could beat anyone. That's why they'd be worried about it. If you're not picking up what Chip's putting down, the other night on the Sunday night show, we had just gotten the playoff bracket in our hands, and we had Bama's not in there, South Carolina's not in there, Miami's not in there, Ole Miss is not in there. And I said on the show, yeah, I think the committee got it right. No one proceeded to hear me because for the next 48 hours, everyone claimed that I said the committee got it wrong and these SEC teams should have been in. I didn't say that. They shouldn't be in. But what I did say is everyone's talking about Alabama being the one that got left out, but I had actually corresponded with some coaches, and they were saying Ole Miss was the team they were glad got left out. Ole Miss was the team out of all of those teams that they least wanted to play. And the reasons they gave me were Jackson Dart is a very dynamic threat at quarterback. They've got good tailback, excellent wide receiver talent. They have also got the most dynamic group of pass rushers that they think they would have to deal with in the entire playoff field, including all the teams that made the playoff. And that makes sense to me. So you could listen to that and you could say, oh, wow, they actually do have a point. Like on paper, all of those things exist. Or you could say, yeah, but they lost to Kentucky. Well, we know they lost to Kentucky. That's why they're not in, or that's one of the reasons why they're not in. But does one Saturday define a team? Does the fact that you lost to Kentucky guarantee that you would perform that way if you played against Tennessee in the playoff? Of course it doesn't. I watched an Ohio State team lose to Virginia Tech one year, and I think they went on to win the national title. Well, how dumb would it have looked if, as the confetti was raining down, I said, no, this team didn't really just do this. How could the team that lost to Virginia Tech do this? Well, probably because the team that showed up that night to play for a title played differently than the team that lost to Virginia Tech. Like the Ole Miss team that skull-drug Georgia, that's also the same team that lost to Kentucky. Is it not? Yeah? Did it matter to Kirby Smart when he went to Oxford and toted that L? Did it matter that Mark Stoops went in there and got the job done? No, it didn't. To understand how this game works is not that difficult, guys. You got a lot of moving parts. The ball is shaped very weirdly. It bounces in strange ways. You score in 3s and 7s instead of 1s. So a couple of mistakes here and there can make a game that was close look very lopsided, or a game that shouldn't have been close look very close. Ole Miss would have worried some folks, but they're not in, so it doesn't matter. I appreciate you guys watching the show. We went a solid 70 minutes tonight. And I hear we'll do it again Thursday night. Yeah, that's what I hear. Make sure you subscribe to the show if you haven't already. That goes for you guys on podcast as well. We do great numbers everywhere. I'm just asking you to continue that because I know we have a lot of new people every show. And our numbers suggest that only about half of you are subscribed. So change that by subscribing. And, you know, make Jesse and Colin happy tonight. And me as well. For Director Colin, for Producer Jesse, I'm Josh Pate. Take care. We'll see you back here Thursday night. Until then, God bless.